First of all, thank you all for coming, and I want to say a special thank you to Sarah Cunningham because this was a major show and it was a lot of work, and she did this all with the help of students and her husband, and it's really, really beautifully installed and well done, and it's a huge project. So I want to thank Sarah and also the faculty for making this all happen, because I had silkscreen students and painting students and drawing students. I had everybody working on this thing, which was much more work than I should have taken on for a 4-week project, but we did it and it was great. And I also want to thank the students, a couple of whom who are here, who worked day and night for 4 weeks pretty much. And so when we turn the lights off, I'll show you what they did because it's quite extraordinary. Anyway, what I'm going to do is show you this piece, which you may or may not have seen. And then I'm going to go way back to my college days and show you what I did then, because I know many of you are students, and kind of go through my various series of works and talk about drawing and my practice and how I make things happen for these drawings. So we can can the lights. And has everyone seen this, first of all? Okay, well, if you haven't, go see it. It's quite large. It's 20 feet. You can kind of see the size of the scale of it. So this is the wall piece that I did, and this piece is based on Los Angeles and what I'm seeing there as I'm working there. I have a studio there now, and it's based on the city and its various component parts and how it's constructed and sort of the various aspects of it. So just take a look at this now, and then we're going to go back to this at the end. I'm going to go way back to college, way, way back. This is also a new piece. We'll go back to that later as well. Okay, in college, I decided to copy all of these various famous paintings. So I did the Potato Eaters in a linoleum print. I did a Chardin in an etching. And I did just tons and tons and tons of drawing of famous works, because I thought it would help me to see how they created spaces, how they made objects fit into spaces, how they made things work. So this goes way back to when I was 19. Anyway, and this piece is a recent piece from the UCSB Museum that I did a couple of years ago, and this is 20 feet high and 25 feet wide. And I'm just going to flip through really quickly. You can kind of see the corner of the wall. And this is that process. Okay, I'm going to go and just kind of talk about drawing. My whole practice is drawing. It's not painting, it's drawing. And the reason I like drawing is that it's intimate. You can think with the pencil. I don't plan things out ahead of time. I kind of do them as I plan them as I go. So I'm constantly thinking with the pencil, and I like the fact that it's paper and it's close and it's intimate, and I can sort of make things work just right in front of me. Someone said that painting is like television and drawing is like radio, and it really kind of is. It's kind of quiet and intimate and slow, and you build things up. And also I like drawing because I like the paper. And what happens is the paper kind of shines light through the pencil mark. So I like that idea of drawing and having the paper kind of shine through. And so you don't really add light to a drawing. I think the light's just in the paper. Whereas in painting, you kind of add the highlights and make that light come through. This is a very, very old drawing. This is probably 30 years old, and you can sort of see that it's a lot of the same things are there, this sort of complicated busyness, not quite as well formed as the new ones. These are also very old, very, very complicated, and not so structured. This drawing's about 30 by 40, and it's just very obsessive, just pencil marks, sort of an overall pattern. I did a series of work. I usually work in series. So I did a series of work with egg tempera about, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And I don't know, has anybody worked with egg tempera before? Okay, well, what you do is you mix pigment, like just raw powdered pigment, and then you add egg yolk to it. And then that is your paint. And it's very, very slow, and it's methodical, And I think the reason I took it on was I wanted to layer things. So this little tiny, this is a small painting, maybe about 18 by 20. And it's just layers and layers of really thin egg yolk. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And it has a surface sort of like pearl. So I spent about 3 or 4 years working with egg tempera. I'm not doing it now, but I just wanted to try it as an exercise. And most of my drawings are exercises. I try things and I try something else, and I try to throw in something to make it sort of different. These are more egg tempera. They're very small. It's very, very time consuming. And it takes a long time to cure. So I had my paintings in my studio, and I saw this really kind of funny mark on it. And I couldn't figure out why the surface was gone, and then I realized the cat was in the studio, and the cat seriously ate the painting. So this is, okay. Yep. He seemed to be fine. I started doing drawings of personal history after that, and my dad was a projectionist at a theater, movie theater, and I loved going up to the top and seeing the movies, and so I wanted to do something based on the movie theaters. So I went down to his old movie theater, which is now Mexican Market, and I took all the photographs of it, and I made a whole series of drawings, pencil drawings, based on that theater. So this is sort of the front of it, and you can sort of see some of the elements that are in this big drawing in the gallery now. But I did a lot of drawings of the marquees and of the fronts and the back and the balcony. And as a kid, it seemed very glamorous and huge, and now it seemed kind of small and not so glamorous. But anyway, these are the drawings based on the theater. So there's small little elements, some small little paintings. These are oil paintings. They're very, very tiny paintings. They're about 18 by 24. This is the marquee. And I just sort of experimented with what was there and took fragments out of it. And I'm pointing this out because I think all of this goes into what I'm doing now. So all of these little things kind of come together and make a new whole to sort of create what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I'm just going to flip through these because you don't need to dwell on all of these. And then I started doing these tiny little biological drawings, these little plants, and really, really tight, way too tight in my opinion. But just as an experiment, I would do these little sort of images, these small sort of vines and leaves and tree branches. And if you look at the drawing there, you can sort of see some of that coming through in parts of it. This is a very huge drawing. This is about 5 feet high and about 12 feet long. And it's all Prismacolor. So I did all these series. This is large too. This is about maybe 30 by 40, 30 by 50, something like that. Okay, so about 10 years ago, I started thinking about a new series of work. So what happened was I wanted to do something based on the farmland because my great-great-grandfather and grandmother farmed much of Ventura County in the 1870s. All that's gone now. The house is kind of still there, but all the farmland's been sold. It's all been taken over by tract houses and strip malls and all the rest of it. So I found some old photographs of the farm, and I decided I wanted to do something to kind of honor that. And I looked at the farms now, and all you see now are things like this. You see rolls of wire, and you see huge greenhouses. I mean, hundreds of acres of greenhouses. And all of this is covering that land that was there before. And so I took all these photographs, and I decided what I was going to do was take pictures of the farmland, take the old pictures of the farmland and then overlay these new structures. And that's how I got to the farm drawings, the huge farm drawings that I was doing for so long. So here's just things on the side of the farm. And so this particular drawing is based on the first image I showed you of the hoop, the rolls of irrigation plastic. And then these are based on the greenhouses. This is kind of a small drawing. These are the first attempts. And these are all about 20 by 30, something like that. And then I decided what I wanted to do was make a drawing that was the same size as the side of the field. So when you look at the fields, and you'll still see it now. If you go through Ventura County, what you'll see is the fields, and then you'll see these sort of plastic scrim on the sides. And on the sides, you'll see graffiti, and you'll see things hanging on them. And so I went down and took pictures of that, and I made a drawing. I made some drawings that are exactly the same size as the fences, the field scrim, which is about 5 feet high, and these drawings are 12.5 feet. And these were shown at the Contemporary Arts Forum here, which is now MCA. And so this drawing, what I wanted to do was make the drawing so that you would see, like you would be standing on the field looking at that fence. And that's what this drawing was. Same with this one. This is just a portion of one of the other drawings. And then this is the whole thing. So this was 5 feet high and 12 feet long. And they were installed in the gallery, so when you walk in, you're kind of, standing in front of these things. Like I was wanting people to be actually there. Here's the installation shot. And then I did some vertical ones as well. I'm just going to flip through these pretty fast. These are probably 10 years old. And then after that, I was represented by Bank Gallery Los Angeles, and they built a new space. And so she offered me a show, and the space had these enormous ceilings. It was an old bank building. And so the ceilings were, I don't know, maybe 15 feet high, really, really high. So I decided I would do some vertical drawings that would just hang on these really beautiful walls. So I made these vertical drawings, which are, I think they're 8 feet high. And it's the same idea of the farmland and the idea of showing sort of how the land was changed and overlapping all of these different images. And these, with these, I wanted you to stand there and feel like you were there. So when you stand in front of it, it just sort of is right in front of you, and it takes it takes the space in front of you, so you feel like you're present. Here's the up close of some of those. And I used a lot of images like hats and sort of some things that were lying along the side of the farm fields. When you look at the farm fields, you'll see clothing, and you'll see fires, and you'll see barbecue grills, and you'll see all kinds of personal items, because the workers who work there all day. So they cook, and they take naps there, and they leave their clothing on the side along with various other objects. Pardon? Probably, yeah. I mean, if you look, you'll see all kinds of things kind of strewn around. So I kind of experimented with composition, and you'll see that this hoop-like form is pretty much in everything, and it's also in the work that's in this show now. And the reason is I decided I would have a continuing vocabulary. So every body of work goes along with every other body of work. So it's not like these drawings and these drawings and these drawings, but there's kind of this vocabulary. So it's all about space. It's all about how people use space and how they change space as they use it. So whether it's the farm drawings or the Rotterdam drawings or the LA drawings, it's all about how people use space and how space changes through their use, and how you can see the new things that go over the old things. I was fascinated by an article in the New York Times about a year ago about a woman who was in Amsterdam, and she was just taking photos of the Dam Square, which is, it's called the Dam Square, and she found these photos of the same square, but it had Nazi signs all over it. So she was looking at this window from the square, and of course now it's a store or something, but then she picked up this photo, and the photo had all of these Nazi symbols. So it was actually a Nazi headquarters. So it showed the history of the place, that it used to be occupied by the Nazis, and now, of course, it's just this big public square. So I'm kind of fascinated with how spaces change over time and how people add things to them and use them in different ways. So these are all the farm drawings. This one was based on the tomato greenhouses. In Ventura County, there are greenhouses that are hundreds of acres in size, and they are as high as this building. And the plants are in these little tiny packets of soil, and the tomatoes go all the way to the ceiling. So when you look at these greenhouses from outside, you see through the glass, and you just see tomatoes everywhere. And it's just these red spots everywhere. It's kind of a great image. So I based this drawing on that. And then I did some really, really long horizontal drawings based on the same sort of farms and the idea of kind of the sprawling farm and the hoops and all of that. And you can see here there's a lot of negative space. So I like to use the negative space as well as the positive. I know probably a lot of you draw. And so the negative space in the paper is as important as the positive space. And I love paper. I mean, this paper I have is so beautiful. It's 300-pound weight. So it's really, really tough, and it just has this beautiful presence to it. And it's really as important to me as the actual thing I put on the paper. So these are all of the same series. And here you can see the tomato one with some people standing in front of it. It was shown at Otis College of Art and Design in a group show in 2008. So you can kind of see the scale. Then I did this whole series called Cathedrals of Commerce, and the idea was that I thought that these greenhouses looked like cathedrals because they raised to the sky. So I did this whole series called the Cathedral Series based on the greenhouses. And I sort of compared the greenhouses to churches. So I used a lot of church imagery along with the farm imagery. And I like taking all these different elements and combining them, and then they become something else. So if you have just one hoop, it's no big deal. But if you have 20 hoops, and then you overlap 20 hoops on top of that, and on top of that, you have this really beautiful surface, and you really have something else happening. So I like kind of overlapping and having things just become something else, so that the objects combine with other objects, and then you have a hybrid object. And these are all from that same series. So you have the hoops, and you have the church kind of elements, and you have foliage, and you have fruits and tomatoes and oranges and whatever. Okay, after that, I decided to do a project on the St. Francis Dam. Has anybody ever heard of the St. Francis Dam? Have you seen the movie Chinatown? Okay, well, if you know anything about Los Angeles, what happened was in the 20s, Mulholland was the chief water engineer of Los Angeles. So he was going to bring water from the Owens Valley, and this is a big topic now because we're in this drought, but he was going to bring water from the Owens Valley to Los Angeles, mostly because he owned land in the San Fernando Valley, and he wanted to bring this water. So he brought the water. They bought up land in the Owens Valley, brought the water to Los Angeles, and they built many dams. One of them is the St. Francis Dam. And that was built in an area kind of by Santa Paula back in the hills. And it wasn't built very well, and in 1928 it burst. And what happened was, if you know Santa Paula or Ventura, it was in Santa Paula and it burst, and it sent a 10-story wall of water all the way across Ventura out to the ocean. And I wanted to do something on this situation or this event because my mother went through the dam break. So she was on the flats, and her whole family had to go to the hills, and they experienced this firsthand. So I thought it might be an interesting thing, since it relates to the same land as the farmland, to do something about the St. Francis Dam. So these are actual pictures of the dam. And it's the second worst man-made disaster in California's history. And hundreds of people died, maybe even more, and they don't even really know the exact numbers because a lot of them were migrant workers, and they weren't citizens, they weren't counted, they just perished. So I took these various photographs of this event. This is the aqueduct on the right. You can kind of see it. You can see it now when you drive through there. And I made a series of drawings. And the reason I'm putting up Bruegel's Tower of Babel is I think that the Tower of Babel that Bruegel drew or painted looks pretty much a lot like the St. Francis Dam structure, kind of this tall structure. So I did a series of drawings on the St. Francis Dam, and I compared it to Bruegel's Tower of Babel because they were both built because of hubris. Mulholland thought he could build anything, and it was going to be fine, and he was the chief water engineer, and he could do whatever he wanted. The night before the dam broke, or the day before the dam broke, the person who was working on it said, it's really, really weak, and it's not looking good. It's seeping already. You better take care of it. And he said, no, it's fine, it's fine. It broke the next morning. And if you know anything about the Tower of Babel, it was built as this sort of tower to heaven, like you could build this tower to heaven. So it kind of related, and also at the time I was in Rotterdam, so this painting is in Rotterdam. And it made sense to me to compare the two things. Here's another version of it. So I did these paintings based on the St. Francis Dam break. And you can see the images of sort of the floating debris and whatever, and then the Tower of Babel, which is the same shape and form as the St. Francis Dam. This is a two-part drawing. Each piece is 40 by 60. A lot of oil paint. I tried to paint like the Dutch masters. I mean, these sort of really rich oil painting, sort of fruits and vegetables, to tie in Holland with the drawing. And then this is a triptych that I did. Each piece is 8 feet high and 5 feet wide, or 4.5 feet wide. These are just parts of that. So it's based on the land, it's based on the flood, it's based on the Dutch Tower of Babel, or the painting that I saw in Holland. And then this is a diptych that I did. This is a really big piece. This is, I think it's 10 feet high, and then each side it's 5 feet. Each piece is 5 feet wide. And I started, with this piece, I started bringing in motifs, sort of textile motifs on the side, to sort of show the culture. I found some textiles in Holland, so I wanted to use those as well. Okay, this is just kind of an errant one. I did a residency in Rome, and so I did some drawings based on the Roman water pattern. If you go to Rome, you'll know that, or you know that Rome is built in layers. So you can go to a church and you can see 4 different centuries of just these periods of time. So they built on top of things. And below Rome is a whole water system. There's water everywhere in Rome. There's fountains everywhere. And there's this sort of pathway of water under everything. So I did these drawings based on the pathways of water in Rome. And that's one of them. And you can still see that I'm using kind of the same vocabulary. Even though it's about Rome and it has parts of Rome, I'm still using the same sort of swirls and vocabulary as I did in the other one. So there's still some swirls, there's still some hoops with new things going on. Okay, after that, and this covers about a 10-year period, I have a studio in Los Angeles, and I wanted to do something with Los Angeles because I love Los Angeles. I went to UCLA and I love Los Angeles. It's hard to get to know, but once you know it, there's all these little hidden nooks and crannies. And I'm in Chinatown, so I see Chinatown, I see Little Tokyo, I see the City Hall, I see all these things going on. There's a park on one side. So you can stand there and turn around, and you can just see all these different things going on, and different cultures, and different buildings, and people doing just all kinds of sort of different aspects of life. And I like that, and so I thought I would do some drawings based on LA. And that's what I'm doing now, and that's what all the pieces in the gallery are of. So I'm working on that now. It's ongoing. I like the idea in LA that you can go into a building and there's something completely hidden beneath it. So on 5th Street downtown, there was a 99-cent store. And somebody bought it, and they tore the walls out, and they found this. That's what they found. I mean, it's Batchelder tiles, and so somebody is restoring the whole thing and making it into a chocolate shop, which I think is really kind of fascinating. So I've been really interested in LA and what's beneath everything. I like all these, the architecture, the stage set idea of Los Angeles. This is actually a stage set, but LA is a big stage set anyway. Everything's sort of hidden behind everything else, and it's just really a big facade. This is the old Pacific Ocean Park. You probably have never heard of it, but on the Santa Monica Pier there was this amusement park, and they had a roller coaster, and they had all these great rides, and the waves knocked it out. So that's the remains of Pacific Ocean Park. And this is one of the theaters in Hollywood. think it's the Pantages. And then this drawing here is in the show. So what I've been trying to do is take the elements of Los Angeles and combine them into this new work. And you can see even in this one, there's still the hoops, there's still some vegetation, but there's more imagery of a lot of the patterns I'm seeing. And I'm starting to use photographs in the work, and I'm starting to add realistic elements into the work. This one is not in the show, but it's of the same period. You can see on the left the pattern of bird cages. And I work by taking thousands of photographs. I have just tons and tons of photographs. And I just lay them out, and I just start working. These drawings aren't planned, so I just start drawing. And I'll take something, and I'll draw that, and then I'll draw something else, and then I'll add and add and add and add and add till the drawing takes form. And so it's sort of a hard way of working in a way, because you make mistakes and you have to toss things. But it's a good way of working for me, and I like it because it's a thought process. So I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly evaluating, constantly comparing things, constantly adding, throwing out, adding, throwing out. So it's a really active thought process. This is in the show as well, but it's an earlier version. I took it and added some more things to it. I just couldn't keep my hands off of it. And then you saw these in the show as well, which become the basis of the big drawing. I decided that I was spending too much time drawing on these huge drawings, so I was going to make a drawing a day. And I was going to make 100 drawings over, I don't know, 100 days. Well, I started making these little tiny 6-inch drawings, which you'll see in the show, and I didn't make a drawing a day. I make a drawing, it takes me about 3 days to make those drawings. But anyway, what I wanted to do was experiment with just different things. So with paint and collage and whatever I had, and just make these little tiny drawings and then just see what happened. And I've made about 60 of them. Some of them are in the show now. And then those became the basis for the grid that we made the big wall drawing from. Does anybody have any questions so far? Yeah. It just depends. Yeah, yeah. Alex? Yeah. Yes, yes, yeah. No, no, no. So anyway, these were the drawings that you saw on the wall. And then I decided for the big drawing that what I would do is have those photographed and then made into a grid and then printed on a piece of vinyl, and then that would be the first layer of the drawing that was going to go on the wall. So that's what we ended up doing. Okay, so here's the final drawing. And you can see the grid. The whole thing was a grid. And then what we did was we laid the grid down, we painted on top of the grid, and then we started pulling the vinyl away. So I have some of the process drawings, and then we'll go back to the final drawing. So you can see this is how they started. The grid was put on the wall just as is. It's just kind of like wallpaper, really. And then what we did was started drawing lines on top of the wallpaper. And that was based on a projection. So I took one of my drawings and we put it on the wall and we traced around certain parts of it. And then we reversed it. So one side is the drawing as is, and the other side is the mirror effect. And then the middle was just kind of left blank. And then after that, that was kind of the starting point. You can kind of see the projection of some of the trees and things up there. And then after that, we changed everything. So that was kind of step 2. Here's people tracing it. And we kept painting and tracing and painting and tracing. And then we had a series of silk screens. So 2 students worked on silk screens the whole time. So I gave them transparencies of parts of my drawings, and they made a stack of silk screens, both on Mylar and on paper. And then once we had these silk screens and people were cutting them out with an X-Acto blade, And then the idea was to put those on top of the painting drawing, which we did. You can see everybody kind of working there. Okay, so Cynthia Estrada is here, and she did this pattern, and it was amazing. I mean, she worked, I don't know how many hours, hundreds, I don't know, maybe. But anyway, so she painted, so that was her design, or I gave her a pattern, and then she took it, and then she made it kind of her own. So that, she painted that with the two columns, and the idea was that those two columns would anchor the drawing. So they go from the top down to the floor. And then as things got painted, you can see her tracing it there. And then one student did lines, many lines. So you can see kind of the process now. The patterns, and then one student made the trees at the top. So this whole thing was kind of happening all over the place, and then it got to be too busy. It was way too busy. So after that, we took X-Acto blades and started peeling away parts of the images. So it becomes more negative space. And you can kind of see it here on the right. We just peeled the whole center out. It was too much going on. So I thought that the middle should be kind of quiet, and then the edges could be more busy. And then people continued to draw and paint. And one student, Xian Kim, painted these beautiful, if you look at it, these beautiful little paintings. If you look really close, there's these little tiny pieces of photographs and beautifully painted just foliage and kind of frames around other images. It's just really lovely. I'm going the wrong way. I'm going to go all the way to the end. Sorry. Pardon? Oh, okay. Up. Here? Oh, I see. Never mind. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so that's the final piece. And this was really an experiment on my part in terms of trying to combine these different layers. I'd kind of wanted to put another layer on top, something was like maybe relief cardboard that would actually pop out, but it became a relief painting anyway, because what happened was the painting was put in, and then we would cut away through everything. So we had the grid, then we had the painting, then we had the silk screens, then we had more painting. And then we cut away everything from that. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. I use paper called Lana Carell. It's 300 pound. And it comes in a big roll. Yes. It's hard, yeah. I wear printer's gloves, white cotton gloves, and I cut the tips out. And then I put paper where my hand is. So if I'm drawing here, I have paper here. So my hand doesn't touch the thing. Because if your hand is on the paper, you're going to get hand oil, skin oil. But it's very hard. I think some people mask out. Like they'll mask out all the negative space and then draw inside. But I can't really do that because I'm constantly changing everything as I'm working, so I don't really have it planned out. Any other questions? Yes.
When you work up in actions, which one which surprised you more, the influence you more, what you do?
The artists that I like, you mean?
When you work up in the room, the exercise of stuff in your face.
Oh, I think Bruegel. I think Bruegel is my favorite. I think he's the most important artist to me because of his compositions. Really, really complex compositions. If you look like his winter scenes, there are these just, different layers of space that go back, and these just really tiny nuances of little pieces of places. So I think probably him more than anybody else. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Yeah, the drawings are 6 inches square, and I think the ones on the grid are 9.5 inches square. And they're not as dark either. I had them kind of fade it down, so it would be like a ghosted images, just really, really light gray. But it was a stronger statement than I thought it was going to be. I thought it would be not quite so predominant when we started drawing on top of it. And that's why we started cutting away. The order, random. Yeah, I tried to organize it, but there were 15 ways to do it, and nothing was better than anything else, so I just did it at random. Yeah? The great big ones? Probably 6 weeks if I work full-time, and I usually work full-time. I used to make one drawing at a time, and now I don't do that quite so much because I'm trying to make things push a little bit more, so I try to throw things in them that are different. I'm working now with a printer in Los Angeles, and we're doing platinum collodion prints and salt prints based on the drawings. So he's taking the drawings, he's taking the photographs of the drawings, and then we're working photographic processes on them. So I'm going to see what happens with that. I may use parts of those in the drawings, or may just use those as the drawings. I'm not really quite sure. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did you always have an urge to draw on walls?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you get in trouble for it?
Pardon?
Did you get in trouble for drawing on the walls?
I did, actually. I got in trouble in school because I would be given a project and I would just draw it without the picture of it to copy it. It turned out fine, but you weren't supposed to do that. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I always had an urge to draw. And actually all my notes from school are all drawn. They're not like handwritten, but there's always kind of columns and boxes and things like that. Any other questions? Yeah. No. Rulers and French curves. Yeah, no. I mean, that'd be pretty good, but no. Yeah, Gail? I have no idea. I don't know. Really, I don't know. I've done other things too, but I always wanted to just draw, really. So, yeah. Alex? You mean like do a building or something? Yeah, sure. Actually, I have this idea about transferring the drawings to metal and doing some kind of a structure. So I think that would be kind of fun to do. So you could actually like walk through it, or it'd be like a screen that you would, you know, go in, something like that. So yeah, I do have an urge to do something like that. Yes. Of the final drawing? No, I think it's really wonderful. And really, I really like it a lot. And I didn't like it up till the day before. So yeah, it was really hard. It was really, I think, it just was too busy and too much was going on. And then we took too much away, and then we had to add things back. But right at the, I don't know why, but right at the last minute, things come together. Yeah.
I think I know why that is.
Why?
But it just wasn't right until that last moment.
Yeah.
It was suddenly just right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, too, is we finally took the ladders out, the scaffolding out, the junk out. Because it's hard to look at something with a lot of, you know, with everything there. But really, I mean, everybody who worked on this drawing, this isn't my drawing. This is the students' drawing, because everybody had a really big part of this. And their ideas are in this drawing. So what we did was every day we would ask people, I would ask people what they thought about this and what they thought about that. And I asked Cynthia where she wanted the border, and does it go all the way to the bottom, and does it do this, and does it do that? And so she said, no, it's going there, it's going to stop, it's going to go again. So everybody sort of had his or her opinion, which really, really made it fun. And in fact, during part of the process, we were all just putting stuff up and taking them down, and it was really a lot of work. And I thought, you know, this is really why we make art. Really, right now is why we're making art, because it's just so much fun when you have people expressing their ideas and then, you know, working with their ideas, and then everybody sort of changing and making things happen at the same time. So everybody who worked on this had a specific talent, and after about 3 or 4 days, that became apparent, and then they would just do those parts of the drawings. Any other questions? Oh. No, I did one at UCSB, at the University Art Museum. I can go back to that if you want. You want to see that? Yeah, let me go back. I'm not the best person to do this thing, but There's probably a better way, which I'm not doing. We're almost there, I think. Hold on. Of course, it's right at the beginning. Then you get to see everything over. Yeah, it is actually. Okay, here we go. All right, so this was at the museum at UCSB, and here's where it started. They gave me this, they actually gave me the whole room, but only 3.5 weeks. So I decided just to do something on one wall, and I think I had about 6 students, and decided that I would just do the back wall, and it's a really tall wall, it's 20 feet high. So we got this scissor lift, and you can see the first parts of the drawing there. So this one is more pure drawing. This one is just pencil and acrylic, and then what I did was I had some of my drawings digitized and then printed on this amazing printer that looks just like drawing. So this is how this one came to be. So you can sort of see it emerging. I was a little worried after about 3 days because I didn't have a plan. I don't plan things out. I just draw them. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a little bit big if it doesn't work out. But it worked out. So you can sort of see it materialize. And it was kind of a big tower, these big 2 hoops that came together. I think that held it together. And it was the same thing as this project. We had certain students who could really paint and certain students who could really draw and certain students who could really cut out shapes. And this girl on the right could do pretty much everything. So she was really a big help. And it was, again, round the clock. And here are all the cutouts of the drawings. So I had digitized prints that we cut out. And we had a tight budget, so those little circles are just Xeroxes from the copy shop, 5 cents each. But I think with this process is that one thing in and of itself isn't very wonderful. But if you take that one thing and you make 100 of them, it's pretty fabulous. So if you have 100 buttons that you draw, I mean, it's amazing. And that's kind of what we did there. And we kept a limited palette. But it's funny how things have changed so much. I loved the scissor lift. It was the best thing. Because it would just go up and down and backward and forward. Yes? Yes? Yeah. Well, I think that it's okay. It's an experience to make the drawing. You know, there were happenings in the 70s where things would happen and then be torn down. I have a record of everything. And I think with this current drawing here, I have an idea of what I'm going to do with it in terms of photographs. So I'm going to use it in some way. But the reason I do this is that it's a huge learning experience for me. So it changes the way I work. I mean, I work alone, and I don't want to be in a rut. So if I do a project like this, then if it's too big or if I'm using different materials, it changes my process. And it makes me work a little harder and think out of the box. And that's really why I do it. So I feel okay if it's torn down. This one was up for a long time. This one was up for almost a year. Any other questions? I know. This one's, yeah, really. I'll show you a few more. And nope, I won't. That's it. Any other questions? Yes?
You were talking earlier about kind of the practicalities of being an artist. Is there something that you wish you had known?
I wish I had known how to get the work out there, how to deal with galleries, how to deal with museums. I figured it all out. But I think it's a big mystery as to how you take your work and how you put it out there. And I took a couple classes on it, but really no one tells you. I think you just have to get a really good dealer or know a really good curator or somebody who tells you. But that's the thing I didn't know, was how you take the work from the studio and then get it out there. And I think the best way to learn it is just by trial and error and observation. No one really tells you how to do it, but ask your friends. It's a tough road to be an artist. It's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. And it never ends, but it's really wonderful too. So There you go. Thanks.